Hi, Dermot.
Hi, Guy.
How are you doing? All right?
Yeah, very good. It's very, very pleasant Sunday morning. Been relaxing after what's been a pretty hectic and busy harvest. But yeah, all is going well. Thank you.
Good. I was going to say, because we're now at the point of it's just at the end of harvest. So you've had a lot on with your own wines and various other contract wines. Before we start the tasting, because it's a bit of a treat having your own wines today, can you give, for those who don't know, a bit of background on yourself and also particularly within Sugrue Wines and how things got going?
Yeah, of course. So I used to work at Night Timber. I was the winemaker there until 2006. That was the year that I left Night Timber in order to start the Wiston estate project. So that was back in 2006. So we planted the vineyard at Wiston Estate, myself and Harry and Pip Goring. But at the same time, in the same year, I also planted a 1 hectare vineyard at a place called Storrington Priory. And that was for a monastic order of Catholic priests. And that 1 hectare basically became known as the Trouble with Dreams. That was the name of that project right from the start. So I've had this parcel of vines right from the very beginning of my time at Wiston Estate. And Wiston Estate has involved me making the wines for Wiston, which have been remarkably successful over the years, in terms of us winning, Winery of the Year 3 times in the last 4 years. If that doesn't define success, then I don't know what does. But of course, I've been making the wines for Wiston Estate and lots of other wines for other English vineyards that don't have their own wineries, so being a contract winemaker for many, many clients. Many of those wines have turned out to be extraordinary as well. And right from the start, I thought, well, I'm making a lot of wines for lots of different people. Why don't I make my own wines? So that's where the Trouble with Dreams was born. And now the brand is actually called Sugrue Downs, and the Trouble with Dreams is the signature wine of that brand.
So on that note, is that where you'd like to start the tasting?
I think that's a pretty good place to start. Yeah, this is the signature wine, the Trouble with Dreams. We're on to the 2017 vintage with this. I'll tell you a little bit about the vineyards while we pour. 1 hectare in Storrington, which is an unusual vineyard because it's a conjunction of where the chalk of the South Downs meets the sand as you go just north of the South Downs. I didn't realize this when I planted the vineyard initially, that there's such a diverse difference in the pH of the soils within this little 1 hectare plot. It's only when we added some more vines to it, another 0.6 of a hectare to it in 2017, that I did a full analysis of the 3 kind of edges of what is a contiguous plot. And there's diverse pH of the soil in each of them. So one is dominated by clay, the other is dominated by chalk, and the other is dominated by sand at this little conjunction point, this fracture area. As you head north out of the South Downs. So it's quite fascinating. So maybe that's the reason why it's always produced such complexity. The original Trouble with Dreams wines in 2009, 2010, 2011 was all Storrington Priory Vineyard. The 2010 Trouble with Dreams was awarded the highest ever score for an English sparkling wine by Decanter magazine. The 2011 then went on and won the UK the trophy for best UK sparkling wine at Decanter World Wine Awards back in 2014. And then I took on another vineyard in 2013, which is called Mount Harry, which is represented in this wine here. I also, for this year, in 2017, I had a very, very, very small crop at Storrington, particularly because of frost. Lots of vineyards were devastated by frost in 2017. And Mount Harry was a very, very small crop as well. Not frost, but really just poor flowering. So I actually acquired some grapes from Jenkins Place Vineyard for this Trouble with Dreams 2017. So we've actually got 3 vineyards playing a role in this 2017 Trouble with Dreams.
Was that always the plan, to have like a complete mix like that?
No, it wasn't. You know, the first Trouble with Dreams was one vineyard, Storrington, then it morphed into an East Sussex and West Sussex vineyard combination. But particularly here, well, in 2015, we'll come back to this in a moment when we taste Blanc de Blanc, Cuvée Boz. I acquired some grapes from Jenkin Place Vineyard. Now, Jenkin Place Vineyard is my oldest contract winemaking client at Wiston Estates. 2008. It seems a long time ago now. I've been making the wines for the Bladen family at Jenkin Place Vineyard. And in 2015, they had some Chardonnay for sale, so I absolutely grabbed it. In 2016, I did the same. And in 2017, once I realized that a very, very small harvest for Trouble with Dreams, I bought some more fruit from them. So Jenkin Place has kind of become a third source of fruit over the years for the wines. But it's something that works because the style of Jenkin Place wines, and I know that vineyard inside out, having made the wine for over a decade. They're very, very pure, very precise wines. They're on green sand with some fractured chalk up there, but it's predominantly green sand. And the whole ethos behind the Sugrue Southdown wines is that same kind of style. Purity, angularity, if you like, linearity, precision of the wines, very lean wines that build and grow a little bit of fat over time, but they're always very, very kind of laser etched wines in that respect. And this 2017 is a very, very good example of that.
So it's about focus. Sorry.
Focused. Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah, I was going to say it's about focus for you then, with your wines, being very precise with them, with your intent in the outcome.
Absolutely, yes, and hence they're Chardonnay dominant wines. All of these are generally 60% or slightly more than 60% Chardonnay. Of course, the Blanc de Blanc is 100% Chardonnay. I've got a rosé coming out next year, but that's a Pinot dominant assemblage, as you can expect. But yeah, Chardonnay, I adore Chardonnay. I adore what Chardonnay does here on the South Downs. And that's very much the driver for all of the wines.
Very fresh, really, really fresh.
Yeah, it's actually one of the youngest wines I've ever released under this label.
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, it's only just over 3 years on lees here, where typically the wines have been 4, 5, 6 years on lees. We'll see that once we move on to the rest of the range. And it's really a symptom of just how popular this brand has become, particularly in the last 2 years, well, 2 to 3 years, but because our sales have really, really taken off. And that's always the case when you jump a couple of vintages, in a short period of time, then the wines are younger. But I think this has got a wonderful future ahead of it. And it's already displaying some of those beautiful Chardonnay-derived autolytic notes, oyster shell, and features like this on the nose. And I think that autolytic drive is just going to develop with more and more time.
I love the crispness. That's what I'm getting, particularly on the palates. There's, as you said, like a razor sharp edge. And I really think it's a good thing for our industry to have, because again, this is a food wine for me. I want to have it with some food. I think it will provide such a wonderful balance within the palate, particularly something slightly fattier. I got that immediately. And again, I always talk about this, but I love the edge that we get as an industry that English wines have. And this sums that up perfectly.
We need to celebrate this. I've always been about this with the wines I make in England. Unashamedly, I want to celebrate the acidity and that acid structure and profile that we have, which, it gives the wines fantastic aging potential. There's no doubt about that. But it shouldn't be about having to wait for these wines 10 years down the line for them to become delicious. It's inherently part of their deliciousness. And as long as you can get the other components of the wine in balance with that wonderful acidity, then it comes across as freshness and something that makes the wine more delicious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it is about balancing the citrus elements with freshness. So you've got, a very good complexity of punchiness, but softness, and that's where it is balanced. And I say this a lot, and this wine does that. It will be interesting to see how it ages, but again, I think I'd love it with some food, just because it would cut through wonderful fatty dishes, and just again the balancing effect that would incur because of that would be lovely. Really crisp, really fresh, pleasing finish, which as well is still lingering, which is good. But yeah, just a very nice, easy drinking, rewarding sparkling wine, I think would be a succinct way of summing that up.
Yeah, I think that's quite good. And it'd be a nice contrast once we move on to the Blanc de Blanc. So again, we have here the grapes from Jacob Place Vineyard, particularly their Chardonnay, are playing the full shining role here in this Blanc de Blanc. You know, just to go back to the original Trouble with Dreams vineyards and the Trouble with Dreams vintages, in 2013 and 14, I had really good years. Then in 2015, I had very, very small years. So 15, 16, and 17 for me in the South Downs, about Mount Harry and Storrington Vineyard, I had three very small vintages for different reasons. Frost was one of the culprits, but it was also poor flowering. We had a succession of vintages, 15 and 16 in Sussex, where the weather over flowering was very, very annoying and just led to very small crops. And then 15 was also a year with botrytis. 15 is actually very, very like the year we've just had now, 2021. Really, really late harvest. You had to wait a long, long time for the fruit to come in. And at the end of that, whilst you're waiting patiently for ripeness, you get botrytis. So we had that event here down in Sussex. But I was able to buy these grapes from our friend Simon and Camilla Bladen, and made the first ever Sugrue South Downs Blanc de Blanc.
Dermot, remind me the age of this?
So it's 2015.
Right, okay.
2015. So here we're 6 years after vintage. Yeah, first ever Blanc de Blanc, which of course is something I've been waiting to do with the Sugrue South Downs brand, because I adore Chardonnay so much. I just never have quite enough of it until I made this cuvee Boz in 2015.
It's got a bit more of the cooked fruit and also apricot on the aromas, which is nice. There's a bit more development there. It immediately comes out of the glass. It's displaying wonderful weight now. You know, again, this is a wine in its youth, which was very, very austere. I've treated it differently to the other Sugrue wines. There's no barrel aging here whatsoever. There's full malolactic on the wine, so it's stainless steel with full malolactic in tank, and then just giving it as much time on lees as possible. And it's gone from a wine which is very kind of wiry and tensile to something that is much more creamy and has got that kind of apricot-y depth that you say, but still with this wonderful steely acidity going through it. I think it's in an amazing place at the moment. I was just about to say that actually. I love the zing. It's like the zip of acidity when it's racing down my tongue. It was wonderful. It's that crisp definition that we often talk about. Sorry, Dermot, carry on. That was right on the money, that one.
Well, this wine has just won so many plaudits, I suppose, and positive responses from people. You know, not only did it win us the YGB Boutique Producer Trophy for the second year running, because our Trouble with Dreams 2014 had won it for us last year. So to win the Boutique Producer Trophy at YGB 2 years running, well, it's never been done before, but it's also a wonderful affirmation that we as a small producer are doing a lot of things right here at Sugrue South Downs. But I think also it's captured people's attention because the name of the wine is Cuvée Boz. I named it after my late brother, Barry Ben Sugrue. We called him Boz. And this is my tribute to him. So it's a very, very fitting wine in in the only way I know how to pay a tribute to somebody really is to try and make it as good wine as possible and name it after them.
Was Boz a big wine man like yourself?
He was more of an Irish whiskey guy, to be quite honest. Yeah, he liked an Irish bull of malt. But he certainly liked my wines. I think he thought they were pretty overexpensive. He was a little bit tight, Boz. But yeah, he only ever drank freebies anyway, so it didn't matter to him. No, he did like a drink, though. He did like a drink.
Oh, it's lovely to have a story behind it. And this is something we've spoken about a lot, but particularly within the English wine industry, it is about the people and the passion and the drive. And what you're speaking about, that's exactly it. You know, you've had the inspiration, you've put the focus in, and then this is the wine that's come from it. I mean, wine is stories, in my opinion. It really is. So it's great to hear that, Dermot.
Absolutely, thank you. It's so true. Wine is storytelling. And it's great when, you know, wines are linked to something that's really authentic, and you get that when you're a small producer. You become big producers, sometimes that gets a little bit lost because you've got marketing people at the end of the day who are making up stories and things like this. This is all very authentic, and we'll see as we come on to the end. I've got a wine from another family member, Cuvée Dr. Brendon O'Regan, which is equally special. But Cuvée Boz was a big project for me, and it became a very emotional project. My brother's anniversary was actually in February of this year. He passed away 10 years, and I planned to actually launch it on his 10-year anniversary, and I just couldn't actually bring myself around to do it. And then I woke up on St. Patrick's Day on the 17th of March, and I thought, wow, why don't I launch Cuvée Boz today? So I stuck on my Irish rugby top and did a wee little video on Instagram and launched the wine. And yeah, it's been great. Demand for it has been absolutely fantastic, especially in a lot of restaurants are really enjoying pouring this by the glass. It's doing very, very well indeed. To Boz.
Right, yes, exactly, to Boz. Yeah, absolutely.
He would have been very, very pleased to see Ireland beating the All Blacks in Dublin yesterday. So yeah, there we go.
I was going to bring that up after your comment. I was like, this is wonderful timing for us to have this discussion. I mean, wow, that was incredible, wasn't it?
Indeed. Yeah, indeed.
I do love that acidity. There's just the zing. It's like a zip down the tongue. It's such a wonderful thing for the wines in our industry, and yeah, it's achieved it beautifully, Dermot.
Good. Thank you. I mean, there's a lot of temptation amongst producers to, you know, to try and balance that acidity and to, in some ways, to try and disguise it and make the wines a little bit more approachable for people. And I suppose that does work in certain elements, but it's not something that I actively try to do, because I think people, these are wines for foodies. These are wines for, you know, sophisticated wine consumers, people who like a little bit of a challenge, a bit of tension in their wines rather than just something simple to play out of them. Yeah, it's great to have that tension and that, because it gives a kind of a compelling element to the wines when you engage with them.
I completely
it's also
agree.
my personal style and of wines that I enjoy. So with this project, with my own project, I can indulge myself.
Oh, good. I'm pleased to hear it, because that is the point. You know, that is the purpose. And as you say, it's about you as the winemaker, your stamp, what you're doing. So it's good to hear, Dermot. Would you like to move on?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So,
actually, Dermot, sorry, just before you dive in, something that we haven't touched on too much yet is the labels, because you've got such beautiful designs on them. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the label design is by a fantastic label design company called Stranger and Stranger, a chap called Kevin Shaw. And Kevin, I met him very, very early on at the Wiston project, and he actually designed the Wiston estate labels, which have become very, very iconic and eye-catching and memorable over the years. But he also suggested that he'd love to design a label for me in exchange for a case of wine. And as soon as he suggested that, I leant over the table and I shook his hand vigorously to make sure he remembered what he suggested. And he produced this label for me, which is just fantastic. Kevin Shaw loved my dog. I had a dog called Noodles. Noodles is actually immortalized on the label. Not there, you can just see Noodles, the dog lurcher, who is immortalized on the crest of Sugrue South Downs by Kevin's label. He adored Noodles and needed to feature her on the label, but it's difficult on the original Trouble with Dreams label to actually for it to come across on camera because it's black varnish on a black label. So the detail is very, very difficult to see, but you can see it much better actually on the Cuvée Boz label, because this is really based on the story of what should have been the first ever vintage of the 2008 Trouble with Dreams, which never actually happened because the birds actually devastated more than 99% of the crop the day before we were due to pick the first vintage of Trouble with Dreams. So that's actually what Kevin has the story that he's told in this label here.
That's
and then over.
Sorry, I was just going to touch on the fact that the birds decimated. How much did you say of the crops?
To be specific, 99.5% of the grapes they absolutely devastated the day before we went out and picked. So we always do a crop estimate before you pick a vineyard, because you need to know how many people do we need, how many picking crates do we need, what kind of transport do we need, what time do we need the trailer to arrive, etc., etc. So I did that crop estimate and reckoned there's probably about 1,000 kilos of fruit there. So we'll need something between 60 and 70 picking crates, they're all 15 kilos each. Get a bunch of people. We had about 6 to 7 people rocked up to do it. And then that morning, we just about filled one picking crate. We picked 15 kilos rather than 1,000 kilos because overnight the birds had devastated. And that's actually where the working title for the project was born, The Trouble with Dreams.
Right. Okay. That brings it together nicely. What's the way around that? Scarecrows don't work. Do you have to go out there with a gun? I mean, what? Just and sit and wait and guard?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's some residential properties close by, so having a shotgun or an automatic shotgun banger is for you. They probably come and steal the grapes themselves. But I had it after that event. I had a very, very good friend, and she was judging a scarecrow making competition at a local school. And she called me up and she said, Dermot, there's going to be about 8 scarecrows at the end of today. Do you want them? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, Meryl. I'll come and I'll collect them. So I came with the Land Rover and the trailer, and I put these 8 scarecrows into the back at the end of the judging. And took, of course, the trophy-winning scarecrow was Michael Jackson.
Of course.
Replete with, of course, replete with white gloves. And so Michael Jackson took center stage, and then the other scarecrows were kind of scattered around the other 8 parts. And you can, by the end of decorating the 2009 Trouble with Dreams vineyard, you can see it from space. And that managed to work particularly well. So every year we engage our bird protection measures.
With a Michael Jackson scarecrow. I think that's brilliant.
Leading the line.
Right, Dermot. So let's go on to the wine.
Okay. This is Zodo. I'll just tell you a little bit about the label on this because it's very, very different. This is actually done by a friend of mine who's a Canadian Indigenous artist in Toronto. And this is his image, which is called Water Beings. Very, very beautiful image.
Sorry, Dermot, sorry to interrupt. Yeah? Just say that again. What's it called?
The wine is called Zodo, Z-O-D-O, which means zero dosage. But the
Yeah.
artist is an indigenous Canadian artist, and the name of this picture is called Water Beings.
Water beings.
Water Beings, yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry, that's what cut out. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So Zodo really is a project that I've been working on for many, many years now. I did the first big trials of it back in 2018. So Zodo is 2014 Trouble with Dreams vintage. Now, 2014 was a wonderful year, and I made a good quantity of wine, but I decided to hold back about 2,500 bottles of the 2014 Trouble with Dreams in the cellar, release 2015, and then work on turning this 2014 Trouble with Dreams into my zero dosage project. So Zodo is my made up nomenclature for zero dosage. It's a very, very challenging style to get right in the UK. You need, the vintage must be correct. In 2014, we had nice soft acidity, and I specifically did the malolactic fermentation on that to make it even softer and creamier. But you also need time. You need time in the cellar so that the wines develop a lot of that naturally creamy autolytic character that then will allow you to disgorge the wine with the absolute minimal amount of sugar. In this case, we're talking about 1.6 grams per liter of sugar, residual sugar is left over in the wine. So we're talking about virtually none whatsoever. But that the wine, because of the nature of the wine and the length of time it's been in the cellar, naturally has that that kind of softly structured, broad palate to be able to deal with no dosage. So this is a Zodo. It's a multi-vintage because at the time of disgorging, I'm actually adding some older vintages of Trouble with Dreams. There's some 2009, there's some 2011 in there. So I actually call the wine a multi-vintage wine.
It's interesting because it's the initial word I was going to say is a little smoother, but I'm not sure that's. She might change it. It's just it hasn't quite got that zip of acidity, you know, that zing that we've spoken about a lot, which is really interesting. Just the difference.
It's really to do with you know how naturally very complex this wine is. You know, we're 7 years after vintage. This wine is a fantastic wine when it was in its prime and was always disgorged at a low dosage with 6 grams per liter. But keeping in that cellar for the longer period of time, building all of that autolytic kind of different dimensions there, you don't need any dosage. When you have something as complex and as harmonious as this wine is on the palate, you don't need any sugar added to it. And I think it's a lovely, very, very different expression of English sparkling wine. It's not something you can do in every vintage in England. No way, it just would not work. The wine would taste too austere, it'd be unbalanced, it'd be aggressive. So it's taken a lot of development to get this wine to where it is today. And again, it's just proving to be a wonderfully popular wine amongst you know, particularly restaurants and sommelier absolutely adore this wine.
I can see why, because it's well, like all your wines that we've tried so far, definitely a good food pairing wine. But it's interesting how it's a little bit softer, a little more rounder. It's like it's calmed down compared to the other wines, which is probably how I describe it. But yes, just smooth. That's what I quite liked about it. Really smooth, but still has the zing. And again, I've said this a few times, but it's important that we retain that. That we retain it.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm really trying to display here or to evoke is you know, and I actually write about it on the back is what I said is a journey in pursuit of perhaps the most elusive and ultimate winemaking goal, to reveal geological minerality in reality, not just metaphor. You know, everybody talks about minerality in wines. You know, there's not always something that is present in wines, even though it is used a great deal. there is, I believe, the minerality of the vineyard is showing through in this wine here, and we're trying to pare that back to actually reveal its presence. And the wine is not just about acidity at all. The wine is about displaying the characteristics of the vineyard through a long time in the cellar, because I think that's when you do really see terroir. That's when you see minerality in wines once they've been in the cellar for a long period of time. They're actually giving it. It's the closest thing that they can do, or the closest place they can be to actually reflect that minerality from the geology of the soil that they were born in. That's my take on it anyway.
Great. I think it's just such a treat to go through these wines back to back. So let's carry on, Dermot. Let's move on to your next one.
So the 2013 vintage of for me in Sussex was the first vintage that I combined the original Storrington Priory Vineyard, 1 hectare in West Sussex, with the 2.5 hectare Mount Harry Vineyard, pure chalk, in East Sussex. The vineyards are exactly 26.2 miles apart, believe it or not. There's 1 marathon between the 2 vineyards. And when I put them together and made the 2013 Triple Dreams, it was just wonderful. I loved it. Again, I want to do something special with the oldest matured part of that 2013 Triple Dreams. And in 2017, my grand uncle, beg your pardon, my grandmother's brother, was celebrating his centenary. Now, he's a chap by the name of Dr. Brendon O'Regan. He wasn't actually a doctor. That was an honorary doctorate, which was given to him by the University of Belfast. But Brendon O'Regan, my grand uncle, was an extraordinary man. He actually opened the world's first duty-free shop at Shannon Airport in 1947. He created the Shannon School of Hotel Management in Shannon in 1951. He invented the Irish coffee, and he became the Irish Minister for Tourism under Sean Lemass's government in the 1950s and the 1960s. What he was most responsible for, by being involved in all these things, was regenerating or helping to bring trade and industry and prosperity to the west coast of Ireland, which is something he did very, very successfully in his lifetime. I wanted to celebrate Brendon O'Regan, so that's why we created this, which is Cuvée Dr. Brendon O'Regan, and this is now the second iteration of that wine. So the very, very first Cuvée Dr. Brendon O'Regan, based on 13, was described by Hugh Johnson as spectacular, honestly England's best wine. Matthew Jukes also said it was the best sparkling wine he'd ever tasted. And I just remember what Susie Barry and Peter, her husband, described it as being monumental, were their words. So it was a great, great wine. In 2000, that was a limited edition of 1,000 bottles, which sold very, very well, especially export markets have particularly loved that wine. So I was looking for the next fantastic vintage in order to create the new Dr. Brendon O'Regan, and 2016 is that vintage. So basically, this is the new Dr. Brendon O'Regan, all based on 2016. However, again, I'm using some of the oldest wine from the very first vintage of Trouble with Dreams, 2009, is in here. So it's a multi-vintage based on 2016 with some 2009 in it. And this currently has 4 years on lees and was disgorged earlier on this year. I think that's what really characterizes this wine, and it reminds me of something of champagne, which is very, very specific. Laurent Perrier Grand Siècle, which is their prestige cuvée, which is actually a multi-vintage of 3 different years. This wine has got a brightness brightness on the nose, which is almost indicative of the acidity that is to follow. But it's got such finesse to this brightness, and that's a real indication of just how long this wine will be able to shine and sing with lots and lots of aging to it. It's absolutely delicious right now, but it's just got for me, it's got a phenomenal capacity.
What I was going to mention on the aroma side, hearing you was just how the softness. It's lovely and balanced. It wasn't too punchy. And that's really nice, just to be able to take in the aromas of a wine without feeling like they're too pronounced. Just beautifully smooth.
Yeah, there's a harmonious quality about this vintage, which you very, very rarely see, to be quite honest. And it's really about how things like power and structure are encased within the wine, and yet it's displaying this beautiful harmonious element. But the core inside it is still very tightly wound, and it is going to take a lot of time for it to play out fully.
Absolutely. I was just about to say it, because you've still got the zing of acidity and the crispness that we've spoken a lot about. And once that calms down a bit more, I can totally see that. Again, a good food pairing wine because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's an expensive wine. This is the most expensive wine in the range that we have here. But again, it's a wine that is been poured by the glass in restaurants in London and in Scandinavia. So it's going really, really well for us. And again, it's a very, very special and personal wine for me in particular, to celebrate important people in my family and in our lives.
Well, it's such a wonderful way to do it, and as you said, this is another wine of yours which honours that, and it's great that you're doing that. I mean, it's a real treat for the people. Dermot, thank you for sending through your wines, beautiful wines as one would expect. I think the best way is, or rather, to wrap this up, future plans. What's coming next for yourself and for Sugrue as the brand?
I think it's really about consolidating what we've achieved so far. We and I say we now because Anna, my fiancée, has just joined the company. She's the first ever employee that Sugrue South Downs has had. Anna is a brilliant winemaker. She's actually been teaching winemaking and being the winemaker and teaching as a winemaking lecturer at Plumpton College for the last year. Previously, she was making wine in Austria and Germany and New Zealand and California. And we're now working together, which is brilliant. Anna's taking over as the vineyard manager and the sales director. I'll continue to make the wine. I've got my greater commitments at Wiston estate and from my other clients. And it's really about just consolidating the level of quality that we have achieved. The vineyards are now getting older. Both of those vineyards were planted in 2006. So they're, a decade and a half into their lives. They're producing better fruit each year. We want to manage them better. We want to be as sustainable as possible as we can be in the vineyard, and just try and maintain this frankly rather fantastic level of quality that we have achieved. It'd be great if we can continue being recognised as the best small producer in the UK, and maybe gradually increase our production, because really our production has been about 5,000 bottles of wine a year, building up to about 10,000 bottles. And maybe we'll get to somewhere like, I don't know, 10, 12,000 bottles production average per year. But that's actually fine. We don't want to get any bigger than that. Barrels play a very, very important role in the project. And if you try to get too big, you simply can't let barrels play that kind of a starring role, because the facilities you need to contain all those barrels soon becomes bonkers, So remaining small is absolutely key. And just getting the very, very best out of our vineyards is absolutely key. And who knows if maybe some other vineyard opportunities arise in the future in absolutely the right place, because terroir is a fundamental part of what we do. Then we'll have a look at that. But no, we just got to focus. We've gone from having just one wine initially to then 2 wines 4 years ago, and now there's 4 wines in the range with the rosé about to come out next year. So we've gone through a growth spurt, and we just need to make sure that we contain ourselves and continue to do things at the top of our game.
Which is the best way to do them. Dermot, thank you so much. It's been a real treat, a pleasure as always. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed, Guy. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Take care.